From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. The Workers' Party in Brazil has handed over the presidential candidacy to Fernando Haddad. He will replace former President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva in the electoral race. The decision was made at the party's extraordinary meeting in Curitiba. Hundreds of Lula supporters gathered outside the prison where he is being held.
That pain, that defeat and disappointment caused by losing our candidate motivates us to accept President Lula's challenge to not leave Brazil without an alternative, to continue fighting. And as he determined and suggested, we introduced Fernando Haddad as the presidential candidate of the Workers' Party.
We will not accept a Brazil of the 19th or 18th century. We don't want an unequal Brazil. We will work together to build a new country. We are together here to fulfill this task, and we don't have any problems. We have the will to give back to Brazil. We count with each and every one of you. We will go to the streets, and on the 28th, we will celebrate Brazil's democracy. Long live democracy, Lula libre, and long live Brazil.
Meanwhile, hundreds of people in Sao Paulo have taken part in an event in defense of science and technology universities. They are also asking for Lula to be freed.
During the military dictatorship of 1964, the Pontifical Catholic University of Sao Paulo gave shelter to professors and intellectuals who had to flee military persecution. The Tucarena Theater was the setting for two elections that sought to combat the regime and suffered through two different fires that left their mark on the walls. This was the scene of a historical meeting between members of the Workers' Party.
This act is taking place without presence of the most important president in Brazil's history. Today, Lula's grandson, Tiago, is taking the place that was kept for our leader. Nonetheless, today we are here to defend education, culture, justice for Lula and for all Brazilians. He still leads all the polls. He's still our candidate.
Activists continue to call for Lula's freedom. Calls for him to be allowed to run have been reinforced by the announcement from the UN's Human Rights Council, which said a Lula presidential bid is not optional.
The sovereignty of the Brazilian people is being stolen. We are not allowed to vote for our candidate. We are very worried about the way forward. We feel anxious. We are not only fighting for democracy, but also for our own future.
Fernando Haddad had an important role in improving education for the people. He gave children a chance, despite widespread inequality. Opportunities only exist if there's quality public education, from preschool until university.
In the latest polls, Fernando Haddad is tied with Ciro Gomes, Marina Silva, and Geraldo Alckmin. These polls also show he would beat far-right candidate Jair Bolsonaro in a runoff election.
Tens of thousands of people from dozens of indigenous communities in Guatemala have taken to the streets. They're protesting President Jimmy Morales' suspension of the International Commission Against Impunity. The protests are part of a week of action called by 60 social movements.
30 to 40,000 people from the 48 areas of the Totonicapán region have been peacefully protesting against the government of Jimmy Morales, and especially against impunity and injustice. The peaceful protests are concentrating in at least 4 strategic points of the Inter-American Highway that connects the Guatemalan capital with the South Mexican border. During these latest days of protest, all the different groups have included their demands and joined together in calling for the resignation of Jimmy Morales and to advocate for the continuity of the International Commission Against Impunity in Guatemala.
Thank you for your report. And thousands of Venezuelans have taken to the streets to commemorate the coup in Chile and to reject U.S. intervention. The march follows the revelation that U.S. officials held secret meetings with rebellious Venezuelan military officers during the last year to discuss their plans to overthrow President Nicolás Maduro. This, according to a report in the New York Times on Saturday, September 8th. U.S. President Donald Trump last year said the United States was considering all options with respect to Venezuela, including the military option. The comments brought widespread condemnation from countries around the world.
We're here to support the revolution of Nicolás Maduro, and we say to Nicolás Maduro from here that he can count on our support. He can count on the people of Venezuela, and we'll always have our hand raised to defeat the empire that wants to rise up against the people of Venezuela.
Today, more than ever, the youth of Venezuela are telling President Nicolás Maduro to stay strong and that we're with him and with the legacy of Comandante Chavez and with the revolution. While we're here, 1,000 empires would have to come to be able to defeat us.
Venezuela's Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza has condemned the siege against Venezuela at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. He said the measures taken by the US and the European Union have promoted a financial blockade. Arreaza also met with the new UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, to discuss Venezuelan migration throughout the region. He also asked the Human Rights Council to be fair in its rulings. Fishing communities in Ecuador are the latest to be negatively affected by the government's austerity measures. Echoing voices around the country say they are taking on an unfair share of the impact, while large corporations and multinationals stand to avoid penalties or even gain from these measures.
Ecuador's government has announced new diesel prices. The shrimp and fishing sector will see an increase in their diesel costs in line with the government's austerity measures.
Diesel for the tuna and shrimp industry increased only 25 cents on its VAT. For other fishing industries, there will only be a 10 cents increase. Those numbers will remain the same for the next 2 years.
For some analysts, the measure doesn't make sense because not everyone uses diesel. If they had really wanted to save money, they should have revised gas prices.
There might be speculation, and that is what the fish and shrimp industries are worried about. That will make them lose competitiveness. Those are exporting sector in Ecuador, as a dollarized economy, must support them. I don't understand why these subsidies aren't focused on the sectors that bring dollars to the country.
The government said they have spoken with the fishing sectors. However, local fishing sectors say this measure just benefits big industries and doesn't respect their work.
We haven't been part of any agreement to exchange an increase in gas prices for an extension of artisanal waters of over 800 nautical miles for industrial ships to sail without problem. I make this call because they are only bringing poverty to the fishing communities and artisanal fishing. They are allowing abuse against maritime resources.
In light of the recent economic measures implemented by President Lenin Moreno, several social and political sectors are calling for a demonstration on September 13. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Quito, Ecuador.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, from Havana. Analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. A state of emergency has been declared in two of Honduras' southern provinces due to drought. Families are going hungry because of the severe condition and its effects on their farms. Those living in hard-hit areas have not been able to feed themselves, so families require emergency food. Roughly 82% of corn and bean crops have been lost. More than 5.4 million people on the east coast of the United States are under hurricane warnings. Hurricane Florence grew larger on Tuesday and is expected to bring days of rain, flooding, and power outages. Over 1 million people have been evacuated so far, and authorities are preparing for an emergency situation. The Category 4 storm is said to be the most powerful to strike the region in nearly 30 years. Dominica, Martinique, and Guadeloupe are all under a hurricane watch. Isaac is a tropical storm, but a watch means hurricane conditions could be felt in under 48 hours. Just under a year ago, Dominica was severely damaged after the passage of Hurricane Maria. Prime Minister Elizabeth Scared called on citizens to take all advisories seriously and to keep monitoring the developments with this storm.
We all have vividly in our memories what happened to us in respect to Hurricane Maria and the speed at which it moved from a Category 3 to a Category 5, which was the quickest in history, 36 minutes. And we all suffered at the hands of Hurricane Maria. So as far as the National Emergency Planning Organization is concerned, we are taking no chances, and we're leaving no stone unturned in respect to the preparation of the state, the country, and its citizens.
Social organizations are mobilizing in Buenos Aires against the neoliberal policies of the government. Our correspondent in Argentina, Edgardo Esteban, has those details.
No to
the IMF and enough suffering are some of the mottos in the protests that social organizations and trade unions are holding in different spots of the city of Buenos Aires. The main one outside the Argentinian Congress, demonstrators want to highlight the difficult situation the most vulnerable people are suffering. The attendance to Soup Kitchen has tripled, especially children. These initiatives do not receive any funding or support by Mauricio Macri's government. These protests are aimed at preparing the strike that the public trade unions have prepared for this Wednesday. Teachers will also go on strike on Thursday. Tensions remain in Argentina since neoliberal policies were imposed by Macri. On September the 24th, a massive demonstration is also planned and called for another strike on September the 25th.
Thank you, Edgardo, for your report. And social and political organizations have been commemorating the 45th anniversary of the military coup in Chile, honoring former President Salvador Allende, who died in the presidential palace on September 11, 1973. They are also demanding justice for the victims and disappeared of Pinochet's brutal regime. Nearly 3,200 people died or disappeared in political violence during the 1973-1990 dictatorship. Another 28,000 were tortured.
Every September 11, Chile awakens more silent than usual, with the feeling that no matter how much time has passed, things are still not right.
Today is the anniversary of the military coup which put an end to democracy. I'm too young to give an informed opinion if the actions of that day were justified, but I believe that bombing the presidential palace is not the way to defend our nation.
There were so many detained, so many disappeared and tortured. Their family members joined the crowd of mourners.
I don't have a name for it. It was painful. I would be waiting to buy bread, and members of the military would attack us. There are so many more things not worth remembering.
What does today signify for you?
Pain. My dad was taken to the National Stadium, where so many people were killed.
Was your dad one of the many disappeared?
Yes, I still don't know where he is.
This is why memory matters, reconstructing the events of that day over and over again. Projects like Timeless Pictures represent this idea by merging historical pictures with current image. Many initiatives are defying indifference and impunity traits, words that are becoming more frequent following the recent freeing of members of the Pinochet administration accused of murder and torture. Mireia and her brother's story are part of one of the most heartbreaking projects, a documentary that reconstructs his final moments as a prisoner in Dawson Island.
Our conviction remains strong despite the passage of time. Time will not lead to forgetting. It will only lead to the strengthening of our will for truth and justice for the victims.
Another art project being held this year is the digital recreation of the faces of those who were lost so their families may see how they could have aged. This is what they would look like today, they say, in between laughter and tears.
We are calling out impunity. There are those who walk away free of our suffering, free of losing loved ones. That can no longer be. My brother will never come back.
Projects like this not only reveal the link families have with their lost loved ones, but the link a nation has with its past.
Dozens of demonstrators have also commemorated the anniversary in London. They protested outside the Chilean embassy. Many of the protesters were political prisoners under the dictatorship of Pinochet in Chile. They protested with messages embroidered into patchworks, which they prepared themselves. They also displayed the list of people who disappeared during the dark days of dictatorship.
I'm a former political prisoner of Pinochet's dictatorship. We are here with various Chileans that also arrived during my times who now have kids, and we are demanding the Chilean government to deliver justice for the victims who were assassinated and many just disappeared. I want to send a message to President Sebastián Piñera. I want to ask him to respect international legislation. Why am I saying this? Well, because since Piñera became president, his government has freed various assassins that have committed grave crimes against humanity. We cannot allow that.
The reason we're here today outside the Chilean embassy, 45 years after the coup, is because even though we have democracy today in Chile, we've not had justice. We still have 3,000 people disappeared, whose loved ones do not know where they are, how they were killed, have no gravestone to go and visit, to put flowers down. And for us, it's very important that their memories aren't forgotten, that they're not lost.
And an upcoming documentary is shedding light on the story of Scottish workers who boycotted the coup. The documentary Nai Pasarán, meaning they shall not pass, tells how Bob Fulton and his colleagues refused to repair the Chilean Air Force jet engines arriving to their factory in Scotland in 1974. Despite risking their jobs, they led an act of international solidarity against the dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet.
They're pensioners. Bob's 95, Robert is 80. They're now commanders of the Republic of Chile. They've received the highest honor given to foreigners by the government of Chile for their efforts to preserve human rights. And one of the things I'm really proud of, we were able to find a lot of the basically Chilean Air Force officers who would refuse to take part in the coup to tell their story.
We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez is optimistic about the benefits of cooperation with China. She's in the country to meet different officials and boost new collaboration projects between the two nations.
This meeting was aimed at expanding cooperation, reinforcing projects, and planning new ones, according to the instructions President Maduro gave us. So this is a way for the Venezuelan people to reach welfare. Cooperation with China will benefit both peoples.
Russia and China have pledged to strengthen bilateral ties and promote world peace. China's President Xi Jinping held talks with Russia's leader Vladimir Putin on Tuesday. Russia's deputy minister stressed the importance of the commitment made by both leaders at the 4th Annual Eastern Economic Forum. The United States Special Representative is meeting with officials from South Korea to discuss denuclearization. Steve Biegun is in Seoul, where North Korea is indirectly involved in talks. His meeting comes as President Donald Trump prepares for a second summit with North Korea's Kim Jong-un at his request. A suicide bombing in Afghanistan has killed dozens of people. More on this story and others making headlines from around the world.
At least 32 people have been killed in a suicide bombing in the Nangarhar province of Afghanistan. The attack targeted a large crowd gathered to protest against a police commander. The region has been a stronghold of Islamic State militants and has suffered several deadly strikes this year. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack, although the Taliban issued a statement denying involvement.
There was a huge blast and it killed and wounded many people. I have taken one of my friends to this hospital for treatment, but I don't know about the exact number of people who were killed and wounded.
More than 100 people have reportedly died in a shipwreck off the Libyan coast last week, according to the human rights group Doctors Without Borders. The Libyan Coast Guard recovered 276 survivors and brought them to the port city of Homs. Only 2 bodies were reportedly recovered. The majority of victims are from African nations like Sudan, Mali, and Egypt. Police have used tear gas and stun grenades against students protesting education fee increases in Ivory Coast. The incident occurred outside the Houphouët-Boigny University in the country's economic capital, Abidjan. Zimbabwe has declared a cholera emergency in Harare after 20 people died from disease in the capital. The health minister says at least 2,000 people were infected by drinking contaminated water.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And also join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.